Hi class, today we're going to look at our themes in biology and the scientific method. We'll focus first on just themes in biology. So there's three main themes that we're going to be looking at, and all of these we're going to cover later on in the semester. These are just kind of the introduction to them. So diversity and unity of life, which is really looking at how organisms are similar, things like the characteristics of life, but then also how they're very different from each other, and that the way they look, the things they do, the niche they fill. And then the second theme is interdependence of organisms, which is looking at the ecology and how they are dependent, living things are dependent on other living things, but they're also dependent on non-living things as well. And then the third thing is evolution of life, which is change over time. So first, diversity and unity of life. Diversity is the variety of life. Some things that we see that are different, and the cell is really a basic unit of life, so it's going to be something that's similar, but there's some things that make it different as well, and that unicellular organisms are very different from multicellular organisms. So unicellular, a single-celled organism, and multicellular is one that has many different cells that do different functions. So when we look at a multicellular organism, we're going to have cell differentiation, which is when the cell determines what job it has. So you might have like an eye cell and a skin cell and a stomach cell and a heart cell, and they all do different functions. They have different parts of them that function in different ways, and different organelles that help to allow that cell to survive and thrive in the multicellular organism. Okay, so when we look at biological organization, oh, sorry, I thought I had those written in. We would be able to write these in, and I believe if you have your notes packet, you'd be able to fill these in as well. So our levels of biological organization, if we start from our biggest category, we would have the biosphere, and that's going to fill in this largest category down here. Let's see if we can get the pen up here. I'll try and write these in. My pen's not been working really well lately, so if it's not written very well, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we have biosphere. Let me cross that one off up here. And then next, you'd have a biome. I kind of think biome and ecosystem kind of fit together in the same category, but can split them up here. Ecosystem. Ecosystems are going to be the living and non-living things in a in an environment. Then we would go to community. Okay. And then from there, population. Population is going to be one species. Just abbreviate it here. And the last, smallest in this case, is organism, which is going to be the one individual of one species. We go from there, and the pyramid really continues. We could have made this a little larger, it just won't fit on the PowerPoint that way. So we're going to start down here with organism. So it was the smallest thing on the last pyramid, but now it's going to be the largest thing. And then we're going to go from there to see how small we can get. So from organism, you should see the next thing, which is an organism is made up of organ systems that function together. I'm going to abbreviate there for now. And then organ systems are made up of organs. Okay, organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells, which are made up of molecules. So molecules put together. If you've had physical science already, you would have talked about a lot of these molecules that make up life and what a molecule is. And then molecules are combinations of atoms that are chemically put together. Okay, so you should be able to fill that out in your notes packet. If you want, if you're writing your own notes, you could make this fit into one huge triangle instead of two separate ones. All right, so in the human body, we have cells that make up tissues, and then tissues that make up organs, and then organs that make up organ systems that allow the whole body to function. The unity piece, all living things have features that are in common. So some examples of those are the genetic code, the hereditary information that's in DNA that allows us to have similarities among all living things. All living things have cells that contain organelles. Now, if they're prokaryotic cells, they don't have organelles, but they have cellular structures that help carry out their functions. And then the tree of life, which we'll talk about when we get to evolution and a little bit in ecology. It has 3 main branches that are called domains, and then 6 categories called kingdoms. And we'll talk about how all that fits together in a future chapter. This is an example of the tree of life to show our kingdoms and how they're all related. They're a little bit different from each other as well, so it shows our unity, they're all related, but diversity in that they're all different in their form and function. Okay, our second category, organisms interact with each other in the living world. So this is known as ecology. Ecosystems are communities of living species in their physical environment, and so it's how the living things interact with each other, but how living things also interact with their environment and the non-living factors that are around them. So in here, can you name some parts of an ecosystem? Just take a moment to think through that, and then think through how some ways humans have affected the environment. All right, and then our third category is evolution of life. So populations of living organisms change over time. And we will talk about this in chapters 14 through 16. Descent with modification is part of natural selection, and looking at how organisms will change over time due to, or I should say populations change over time due to the traits that are better suited to the environment. So there's a genetic connection that we'll be using when we get to that chapter as well. Favorable traits are going to survive, and they're going to reproduce more often, and in a changing environment, you're going to see the individuals that are better suited to the environment being able to survive and reproduce. Adaptations are traits that an organism can have that allows for better chance of survival. We'll talk about that again as we move on to those chapters near the end of the semester. Okay, we're going to stop here. There will be a second video on scientific method that you can check out if you are interested.